All right, founders, it is time for another pitch deck critique and review. And this time we've got Camino, and this is a fintech company that raised, my understanding, $6.1 million. And I just want to give credit where credit is due. This is from Yuri Rebrick. He is a YC founder, and he's putting out some good content on LinkedIn. He compiled this pitch deck list. Look at the description to see the rest of the pitch decks and go directly to his post. What's important about this deck that you're going to see is that you only need roughly 4 slides to get investors interested in having a conversation with you. These slides are the problem, solution, the market, and eventually the team slide. And I know I put out a lot of content advice for you out there stating, hey, make sure that you've got 10 slides. I give a recommendation, but really this pitch deck shows problem, solution, market, and team is all you need to get started. I'm sure there are more slides that this startup and these founders used to raise the $6.1 million. Remember, this is pre-seed, and that's important because you're starting off the conversation. Investors are investing in you. By the end of this pitch deck, critique, and review, you're going to see why I believe this is a great pitch deck, even though it only has the minimum amount of slides. Before we continue, my name is Ed Kang. If we met before, as usual, use the chapter markers to jump ahead right to the main part of the video. If we haven't met, I'm a 7-time funded founder with 2 exits. I've raised over $100 million from my startups, other people's startups, as well as startups funds. I'm the chief strategy officer for startups.com, where we help founders every day contact investors and raise capital. We've been around. We've helped companies raise over $750 million that have gone on to raise additional hundreds of millions of dollars and go public, become billion-dollar companies. I think there are about 15 IPOs on our track record of startups that we've worked with. If you haven't checked out startups.com yet, head over there. A lot of free resources to help you out. If you're already part of the community, thank you so much for your support. While everyone is here, do the YouTube thing, like, comment, subscribe. Always helpful to hear what you're thinking. Love the interaction. That's enough. Let's jump right into this pitch deck critique and review. In order for me to review and to rank, it's important that we need to make sure that we cover the basic slides, but I'm ranking this not on how well this deck follows my usual recommendation, the basics, but how effective I think it will be for investors. Starting off with this description of the startup: the end-to-end financial hub for high-growth Latin American businesses. This is confusing. We're starting a little bit in the hole here. End-to-end financial hub. Okay, I understand that we're probably looking at a fintech, so we've got finances involved, and I understand that we've got Latin American businesses, but exactly what is that? Are you a payments processor? Are you a bank? Are you a SaaS software that acts as an ERP? I don't know. Question marks abound. But I get it in terms of having kind of like a slogan or a purpose statement that leads me generally in the right direction. This grade is an average grade at best in terms of the effectiveness of this tagline. And as always, start your cover off strong. My colleague Will at startups.com always says the cover is the one slide everybody's guaranteed to see. So use that properly and get a business description here in terms of what you do, or purpose statement that's super clear, tells me exactly what I'm getting into as an investor as I look at the rest of this deck. Next, we've got the team slide. Normally, I do not recommend that you start off with the team slide. Typically, you want to start off, the Sequoia method says, which I also recommend, starting off with the problem slide as your first slide, unless your team slide looks like this. Let's take a look. It says, we are the right founding team to solve Latin America B2B financial infrastructure gap. We're talking about an infrastructure gap now. We didn't know this from the cover, but I'm going to take for granted you better be the right team. So this statement right here, this headline, I'm going to question it. I'm actually going to say, hey, I take it out. This is actually a much stronger statement that should go up to the top. Serial entrepreneurs with 10 plus years of experience, each in high growth fintech and tech companies. That says way more than what this said. And that's the reason we're starting off with an A statement. Let's take a look at these founders. We got Gonzalo Pareo, founder at OnTruck, $80 million raised. Now we're talking about credibility, pedigree of these founders. 10 plus years scaling B2B sales op teams across Latin America and Europe. This is biz dev. Here's something you're going to notice. Where's the CEO? That's a weird thing, but hey, I'm going to go with it. Rodrigo here, he's in tech, director of engineering at Melli, hired 1,000 devs. The social proof is off the charts. The only way this gets better is if you start putting logos in there, right? But what's not to love? Then you got Benjamin, founder, $83 million raised, exited in 2021, open banking, corporate development focus at Endeavor, entrepreneur, active angel investor. Gutenberg, I hope I said that right, senior product head at Amazon Books. A logo in here. This is a power team, and we've seen these slide decks before. If you've got a team like this, go ahead and start off with this team slide, because a lot of investors will tell you they invest in team first. So why not start with the team slide if you've got this level of team? Let me just warn you, if you don't have that type of team, don't start off with the team slide. You may have an inflated view, or you may not realize that your credentials are not coming across as big or as credible as you might think. I've seen founders start off their decks with a total team slide bio with one founder, and it's them, and they put all their accomplishments, and you read it, and it's like, I was born in a small town, I like long walks on the beach, I've got 2.5 kids, a white picket fence, all that stuff, and it doesn't move the needle for investors. So you need to have a realistic, sober view of who you are, and does it really move the needle? Do you have VC-backed experience? Have you exited? Do you have a logo on your resume that investors would recognize that you can actually put on the slide? If you don't have these things, or some crazy accomplishment like you won a Nobel Peace Prize or you're a three-time Olympic champion, then do not put that as the first slide on your deck. You don't want to do that. You want to show off that you're thoughtful about the problem solution and the market, and then you want to say, we're the team. You may not know us as the team, but look how impressed you are about what we've shown at the beginning of this pitch deck, and now we're the ones that came up with this. You're going to want to invest in us. Now we get to the problem slide, and there are multiple problem slides here, and we're going to combine them. Just letting you know, spoiler alert. Unlike in developed markets, 3 million Latin American growth businesses still suffer from outdated financial infrastructure with low credit availability and poor payment rails. Lots to unpack here, but here's what I like. We've got the size of the problem, who has it, and the scope, outdated financial infrastructure. So size, we've got 3 million Latin American high growth businesses. Great. That's a good market. Then we've got the scope, outdated financial infrastructure. This is why this problem's happening. Severity, we don't have yet, which is the cost of the problem. But here's where I'm confused. Is the problem low credit availability and poor payment rails, or is it outdated financial structure, which leads to low credit availability and poor payment rails? You might be thinking, Ed, you're being pedantic. It's just semantics there. But it does matter, because you're trying to make an impression in very few words. We're showing that in developed markets, we've got competent legacy providers. Who are they? Talk about it. New B2B fintech infrastructure plays. Great. Show that you've got Stripe, you've got PayPal, that you've got other companies doing things right there. I don't know if that exactly applies, but show that. In Latin America, analog banking, oligopoly, okay, oligarchy, poly-oligarchy. Is that what you're talking about? That might be confusing. Lack of end customer fintech, AAS solutions adapted to region. So it's confusing, but here's what I like about it. I like the fact that you are comparing and contrasting the two realities, which is a very good way to start a problem. There are a lot of things to like in the way this problem was done. Let's recap. Size, scope, and comparing, contrasting. I don't have the severity of the problem. What I'm looking for is exactly how much money are we leaving on the table. 3 million Latin American growth businesses, do they transact like, $120 billion a year, but there's no exact infrastructure for them, which leads to low credit availability and poor payment rails? That's something that you could put in there to really highlight what is going on in the slide. It's a great start, very compelling. Now we get to another problem slide. You want to be able to fit all this on one problem slide, but let's look at the elements. The infrastructure bottleneck has become even more critical, as $94 billion of new funding will be deployed across 4,000 VC over the next 4 years. Now we're talking about the potential severity, and this is where it's a little confusing in terms of what are we solving for? Is this a problem that we're solving for VCs? It could be, because we're saying that if you don't solve this problem, $94 billion across 4,000 VC deals is going to go down the tube. That is a problem, like I said, that I'm going to give props to, because it gives me a smiley face, because that's a problem that's very expensive for these VC companies, and they're willing to solve. So if this startup, this founding team was presenting to VCs, this is bang on the money. And we're talking about these high growth businesses. And then we have these quotations, social proof. So we're stacking the deck here. And like I said, you could probably combine this all into one slide and then have additional testimonials, quotes in different parts of the deck. All in all, these two problem slides, however, have all the necessary information. And that's the reason I'm going to give it a pass. If you need to break it up into two slides, they hit home. And at least we have a headline up at the top, though I know exactly what I'm getting into. And across the two slides, we do cover size, scope, and severity. So I'm going to give passing marks to this pitch deck. I know that I jump up and down. I get very passionate about having the right slides in the right order. And that is for founders who need to learn the basics. It's like playing piano. When I started playing piano, I played scales, and they were so boring. My teacher drilled playing scales into me, all different types of scales and different keys. And that was the foundation for me to improvise or to learn how to play other music just by reading it and knowing what key and what notes I'm supposed to hit when I'm in a certain key of a song because I know the scale. It's the same with being an artist. When I started drawing and painting, I learned to paint with the three primary colors. I learned to mix the primary colors. It was like getting a box of crayons and only having red, green, blue in there, right? And later on, you can get cyan, yellow, magenta, and black, which is the digital version. And I learned to mix and match based on the basic colors. And eventually, I knew enough to be able to improvise and to come up with my own stuff. That's why for you early stage founders who've never done this before, you want to learn the basics and follow my methodology or follow a basic methodology that's out there. Mine isn't the only game in town. There are plenty of founders who've raised a lot of money as first-time founders using other techniques and other methodology and frameworks than I introduce here. But I'm like a piano teacher or an art teacher. I want you to start with the basics. These founders clearly are not new. If they've raised $80 million, they've exited companies, they can do pitch decks the way that they want because they know how to talk about it. But if you notice in these pitch decks as you go through, there's some basic principles that are tried and true. They've got clear, stark headlines right at the top of every slide. For example, they know which social proof bullet points to put into the team slide to say, hey, we're a credible founder team. They know the game. When you get to that level and you've raised that amount of money, talked to that many VCs, you can say, Ed, I got this. Thank you for trying to help me with my pitch deck. Hold my beer. We know how to do this. And I'm going to say, absolutely, I need to learn a few things from you. But until then, just like the team slide, understand what you're capable of and how you're going to come across to investors and learn the basics. On my channel, I have the ultimate pitch deck guide for your first pitch deck, your basics. And those are the founders I'm talking to you out there, first-time founder, early stage, raising capital for the first time, totally freaking out, not knowing where you're going, confused, and all the piece of advice. Stick with me. That's the reason I pick apart these pitch decks, especially a pre-seed, to show you what are the principles you need to learn from and what not to learn from and how to make them your own eventually. So we had two problem slides, and now we're getting to the solution slide. And it says right off the bat, to solve this, Camino will build a complete financial corporate hub for high-growth Latin American businesses. You said corporate hub here, and you're using financial hub in other places. Let's not get confused. But I want to know, what is this complete financial and corporate hub, and how's it solving the problems? We've got words like optimization, software, SaaS solutions to scale the business. What does that exactly mean? Credit facilities and better payment rails. That is better. This I don't need. Credit facilities, better payment rails. Or we're building infrastructure so these high growth companies can get better credit and transact payments better. And then fastest, cheapest, and best set up banking payment tools to scale from 0 to 1. I like where we're going because it does solve the problem, but we're not attaching the problem and solution. We want to say how VCs are going to benefit. If you're saying the problem is VCs are going to lose their money, then you need to say VCs are going to maximize every dollar they put in because these high growth companies that you're investing in have this going on. And when you say fastest, cheapest, and best, what does that exactly mean? Give me some percentages. Give me some numbers. Tell me what the result is. Say it's 10x faster or 10% less cost and 90% faster. Give me a 10x solution out there. Don't just give me qualitative statements saying we're going to be the biggest, we're going to be the best. It's like a restaurant saying we've got the best service and the best food. Well, every other restaurant can basically say the same thing. How are you going to know? Not just anecdotes, but quantitative evidence is all for. That's what you want to include. But at least we're heading in the right direction. Make sure you say financial hub. Don't say corporate hub. and we're solving the problem. Top sentence right here. Once again, principles are there. Let's keep going because we've got other slides that are going to help us. This is the market slide, and this is how I know that they know how to talk to VCs because they're talking about how big the market is. We're going after a huge untapped market opportunity. So this is an underserved, underrepresented, underestimated market, which VCs love. To adapt 600 billion in banking and 2.4 trillion payments, products, and services needs for 3 million high growth businesses. You could have put this information in the problem slide. Remember, I talked about the severity. So at least we're lining up. They know that we have to bring in numbers. You could have said 3 million small businesses have terrible infrastructure for the $600 billion in banking and $2.4 trillion in payments. That would have been much stronger. But at least we brought it here and we're mentioning it. High growth businesses in Latin America are only 12% of total firms, but account for 68% of all new sales employment volume. So now we're describing the market, which is great. And here's what I like about this. We're explaining why we're going after high growth businesses. This is a segment of the TAM. We're not saying every business. We're saying we're going after the 12% of businesses. Why? Because they represent 60 to 80%. That is a logical argument. Makes a lot of sense. Really good things going on here. Then we got this chart, and I'm confused. Product, services, volume, corporate credit card. Like, I don't need to see this. In fact, this would have been just good enough. To me, this just muddies the water unless there's a better way to create this. But this up here was good enough. And if you told me how many businesses, and maybe you had like a Tam Samsung picture, but that's going to be in addition. It's just gravy on the cake for a strong slide. Not to mention pointing out that we've got a citation here at the bottom, which just adds more credibility to the slide. Next, we have another market slide, or it's kind of like a why now slide. That's how I'm interpreting it. The time is now. Successful playbooks from fintech unicorn benchmarks abroad and big white space in Latin America with unmet demand growing exponentially. Talk about the market, getting investors excited. Here are the developing economies and what they've got, and then these are the emerging economies and what's going on, and this is where Camino is going to play. It's kind of like a competition slide as well. Could have incorporated it, but I like the fact that it's just straightforward, and I would have put this slide in different place, but I dig it. It's a strong slide overall. They know how to talk the investor's language, which I think every founder needs to learn. Empathize with the investor, talk their language. What's not to like here? But what's important is this slide sets up like a bit of urgency. Like if you don't get on with us right now, then you're going to miss out on this opportunity from these unicorns that have created these massive opportunities in other countries. We're doing in Latin America. And then we get to the last slide. An important slide that I'm missing is the traction slide. And then you'll notice there needs to be an ask slide because this pitch deck did raise $6.1 million. So they had to have asked for it. But I'm betting that they did this more privately. They used this pitch deck just to get the attention. What is my ranking of this pitch deck? Before I give it to you, let's recap and explain why I would rank this pitch deck the way that I am. Gives you a little bit of my thought process. I don't mind that this pitch deck is missing a bunch of slides. I don't mind that this pitch deck has got suboptimal slides and is using multiple slides to, let's say, share the problem statement. What I care about is the content, and this content was bang on. And most likely, this is just a pitch deck to get an investor interested, and there's a conversation where the founders are sharing their progress. Maybe they gave a demo, and they're talking about how much they're going to raise, and most likely, they're talking to investors they already know if they raised so much VC before. So those are all the factors that contribute to why a pitch deck might not look like the same way that you early stage founders, if you're indeed early stage, raising early stage capital first time, your pitch decks might look substantially different, but the principles are the same in terms of how strong each slide is. All you need is problem, solution, market, and talk a little bit about how it works in terms of the solution. And the market needs to be big to be able to attract VC, which is what this pitch deck is doing. And then talk about the team. In this case, the team was mentioned up front. This is why we are poised to win. This is why we know what we're talking about. And this is going to work because we're at a pre-seed level. So you are asking investors to trust you and invest in you as a team. Bet on the jockey, not on the horse, as the expression goes. It might be a distinct possibility that this founding team hasn't built anything, but on the strength of that team, they said, this is what we're thinking of building. Would you commit money to us? And what do you need to see? And if you fall into that top 1% of founders, 99% of founders can't do this, you will be in a position where you can just say, this is what I'm thinking about, give me some money before we actually go out and do anything with it. That's fine. But as I said, Most likely that's not you. It definitely isn't me. I still have to present pitch decks, even though I have a reputation for exits and I made investors money. I haven't had that level of reputation where I can just walk in and say, give me money to figure something out. I have to show them what I plan to work on and at least some type of MVP and explain other types of proof to de-risk the investment. So keep this in mind as I give you this ranking. For me, this pitch deck is a B. It is not the best pitch deck in the world. It's not an A because it's missing slides, but it's not C or D because of those missing slides. Every slide that's in here counts, and it just needs a little bit of adjustment. It can be a total A deck by adding traction, ask, competitive matrix slides, by adding some of those, but really not that necessary. And as you can see, with all these pitch decks, you can raise money. Each one of these pitch decks has raised money at pre-C, even though I give it a lower rank. This one raised $6.1 million. So don't get caught up in how many slides and all the rules. Just make every slide in your pitch deck count. Be a great team, and you'll be just fine. You'll raise the money that you need. Watch the other videos. I put the recent one so you can see the previous ranking, and then a playlist of all the pitch deck critiques and reviews. Let me know what you think. All your comments are super helpful. Thanks for hanging out with me in this video. I'll see you in the next pitch deck critique and review.